should be live. But now, as always, I need somebody to tell me that we're live.
I wouldn't know.
I wouldn't believe it. Yeah. Um, and
Where's
then
this?
where's the chat? Well, it's the pop out chat on
Oh,
the
I think I
Windows,
found it.
so I can give you the link if you want it, and then you can watch it. Here, let me
Did
give
that
you.
do anything?
That's the wrong chat.
Okay.
Here,
So that's to you.
that's only chat to me. So, yeah. I will. So I just sent you a link there. So if you click that link, it'll pop open the pop out chat, and that's the chat that I'm seeing. So if you see, and just put it
Uh-oh.
up on a window somewhere, and then if you see some question that you want, go ahead and grab it.
I like how the first one after us was Woot.
Yeah, that was actually before. That was like before we actually went live. So uh, that was like
Somebody was on the same
Well,
brainwave.
I put in the schedule that this was happening like a week ago, and like a day later, you reached out to me and said, "Oh, I'll do this." I'm like, "Right on." And so then I put you into the schedule, but I don't
Yeah,
know
I was
whether.
watching the one you did with Isaac Arthur.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you figure you've got some interesting things to say. Nice. Adam Longmire made it right to the beginning. Nice job. Now like, it's so funny how many people are like, how come nobody told me this was happening? I just found out about it now. Uh, I put it into the schedule. It's been there for a week. I do this every Monday at the exact same time. So hopefully, yeah. All right, well, let's get cracking, man. So, if anyone has no idea who you are, although I suspect you've just brought a whole bunch of your fans over to here, but why don't you tell people who you are?
Not as many as I
They'll
probably would have liked. I had a video I was working on earlier today, but I took a 20-minute nap and woke up 3 hours later.
So tell people
But,
who you are.
all right, so I'm CodyDon from the channel Cody'sLab on YouTube. I'm from here in the desert of Utah. Currently in my garage, I do a bunch of science experiments, random things, and I show other people what I do.
Yeah. So this is one of those cases like last week we had Isaac Arthur, and I'm a big fan of his work, and I'm
Me
a big
too.
fan of your work too. And this is, what's really funny is that we, I think, became fans of each other completely separately. So it's not like I knew that you were a fan of my work. I don't think you knew that I was a fan of your work. And so I'll tell you what happened. My son is a huge chemistry experiments nerd, and he was watch. I hope he's watching right now. Logan, if you're watching, say hi in the chat. So he would be like, I go into his room and he'd be watching all of these chemistry experiments nonstop, and one of them, which was sort of one of his favorites, was yours. And I think the one that we watched was you were pulling gold out of something. I forget which. You pulled gold out of things on several times, and I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. And then I subscribed to your channel, and then at some point in the last couple of years or so, you commented one of my channels. It kind of blew my mind. I'm never watching this chat again because Cody's there.
It's like
Uh,
I would actually watch your channel. I would uh, download your video onto my phone here, and then I'd just plug it in while I'm working. I would listen to it, the podcast. I haven't seen all your podcasts. I
It's
just
well, and actually, I make all of these available as a podcast now. Even this thing will be available as a podcast, so
yeah.
so you won't have to download it as a YouTube video. However, you were doing that. So you do awesome experiments. Can you explain kind of the setup and how long? So how long have you been doing this for?
Uh, YouTube, I started back in 2011. Uh, actually put the channel together for my grandma so she could see my experiments because she expressed interest. And so I got that set up, and I would just occasionally put things out, get no views. And it actually wasn't until I started doing the beekeeping stuff that I started to have my channel take off. Um, I think it really helps to publish regularly to gain an audience like that. And I was doing a video almost twice a week at one point. Just I took a camera with me every time I went to a beehive, and I think I still have the record for the most beekeeping videos on YouTube.
How how many? who keeps track of these numbers?
Somebody told me a while back, they're like, I think you've got more video of bees than anyone else.
Yeah. How many do you have?
Bees?
Well, but first beekeeping videos and then bees.
Well, I think I've got like over 100 hours of beekeeping footage if you include the all day live
Yeah.
that I did.
And so what's your bee setup right now?
I've got, you can see
Yeah.
there's a wall behind me. There's two beehives sitting on the other side of that wall. One's the box style, the Langsworth hive, and the other is the flower pot hive, which I'm bringing back. Uh,
And what kind of bees are you running?
um, they're mutts. They're a mixed breed of
But
Italian
like
carnelian.
honeybees.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, okay.
I just whatever survives.
Yeah, well my wife is does kind of bees, the orchard bees.
Oh yeah,
The ones that what are they called?
the blue orchard bees.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That sort of like little tubes and they come out
I
every
tried to
year.
do them a while ago, but my dog ate them.
Yeah, the problem is we overwintered ours in the garage and they sort of escaped early and
Oh yeah,
were all over the garage and many of them died.
yeah.
So
I keep getting them like in my torch tips, and I have to rod it out with it.
yeah. So what's your setup then? Because sometimes you're doing work here at the house, and then you've also got like some kind of property that you're out at
Right. So
mining.
the property is my parents. They have a ranch,
Okay.
been in the family since the 1920s. It's larger than most cities, uh, square mile. So um, it's mostly hilly terrain, sagebrush. You run cows on it. Growing up, I could blow up things and not mess with any neighbors because our nearest neighbor was like 8 miles away. So
And this has
that's a
come in. This has come in very handy. And so, how did you get into doing the chemistry and the science and the explosives and that you do? Had you gone to school for this? Uh oh. Did we lose them? There
okay.
we go.
Still there?
Yep.
Okay.
I was just asking you how you got into it. How did you start
So
doing this? Like, did you go to school for it?
my grandpa had a mining company, and all the mining equipment and stuff. I would do assays, just research online how to do it. And I guess my chemistry knowledge snowballed from there. I did go to college. I don't have any sort of degree yet. I'm 2 classes away, and they
From a
won't let me
degree
take
in what?
geology.
Okay.
So uh, hopefully I can get that done by this fall, I think.
2 classes away. You should do that. I'm sure. Or someone has no university like reached out to offer you like a I forget what they call it. Where they an honorary degree for all of the geology and education work that you do.
No, I haven't had anyone reach out to me about an honorary degree. That'd be kind of cool, though.
Yeah, yeah. I keep waiting for my astronomy degree to show up. Right. So you were doing like you were learning stuff essentially through the internet, the various chemistry involved.
Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I've definitely learned more from Wikipedia than anywhere else.
Isn't that like the opposite of what professors tell you?
I know, but well, you have to take the information there with a grain of salt. I find that I edit a lot of Wikipedia pages myself. Like there'll be a chemical reaction or something, and there's something that's left out or that's wrong, and like I've done it. I know what's going on here. We tweak that a little.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I like about Wikipedia is
And
it's like a crowdsourced information,
yeah.
and most of the information is pretty good.
And most of it is pretty good. Yeah. So are you like are you like you've got some plan? Like I'm trying to think of like some of those projects that you worked on. Like you were just like, I want to figure out how I'm going to get gold out of this rock or
Okay.
aluminum. I want to smelt my own aluminum. And
Oh yeah, that was fun.
is that the goal? And then you just start from there?
Yeah, like it's a lot of my videos end up being something that I've been researching just for fun, and then I was like, okay, I think I can do this. Let's try it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the aluminum one, uh, I did make aluminum. A lot of people are saying that most of the aluminum came out of the cryolite, which I had to add, which is probably true. But I showed the process. That's what they do. It's minor tweaks to do it on a small scale.
Yeah. But each one just kind of built, and so you just
Yeah.
and then a lot of that knowledge comes together from what you learned on the one thing. Then you're able to make the next project, and
Oh
some of the
yeah.
underlying chemistry. You made your own YouTube play button when you hit, what was it, 250,000 subs?
Yeah, YouTube was taking a long time to send it, so I'm like, I'm gonna make one of my own. And that video actually, I was just something I was throwing together. I messed up so many times. Like I didn't actually know that silver absorbed oxygen from the air until after that video. Of course, that's something I learned. Uh, but I wasn't very proud of that video. But I was like, I'll just put it out there anyway. Maybe YouTube will see it and send me the play button, and they did. But apparently, it's like one of my most popular videos now. Like,
I,
of course.
yeah, I've seen people like make them out of wood, but I think yours, you went pretty far with it. Uh, so then, what are based on kind of what you know now, what are the projects that you're working on next, or that you would love to kind of get your hands on? And you actually you have a whole bunch of catalytic converters
I do.
around you.
Down here on the floor. See, that's one project I've been working on for some time, and I'm finally going to do it. Uh, I don't know if you ever saw that one. I was extracting the platinum from the road dirt.
No,
Yeah.
oh, because they're coming out of the cars.
Yeah. Like I've noticed these catalytic converters, some of them have a lot more platinum than others, but they should have all started about the same. So that platinum's got to be going somewhere. And after, if there's, and the catalytic converters on the older cars with 200,000 miles are the ones that have less platinum. So the platinum's coming out of the catalytic converter and presumably going onto the road. And so I collected a bunch of road dirt, concentrated it down, and collected a small amount of platinum and palladium. There's a lot of people that are wondering, okay, now did it come out of the dirt that's there? Because there is platinum in the mountains around us, there's a lot of minerals, or did it? So I need to do a bunch more experiments with it. One thing, what I'm doing now is I want to go to the source, the catalytic converters, and make sure I'm able to get it out with the leaching process. And then once I've got all the platinum out of these, then I can scale up and try to get a nice button of platinum out of the road dirt.
Well, you've got a chunk of platinum that you pulled out of the converters, right?
Yeah, so I don't know if you can see this. So that there in the cupel is the platinum, and this is a little bit of palladium. There's actually seemed to be more palladium than platinum in that catalytic converter. And it came out of 1 pound of catalytic converter material. There's about 2.5 pounds in a converter. So it's about a gram of platinum group metals in there that's extractable. Of course, the older ones, there's much less. So,
So I got a couple of questions here. One, Tryhard wants to know, what should I do with a 3.5-inch megalodon shark tooth?
make a nice necklace.
Yeah, yeah. Make copies. Not
Yeah.
sure. And Mark Quad wants to know, can we have an update on the fusion thing, or what do you need all that wax for? Were you
Oh yeah.
doing some kind of fusion?
Yeah, we got a few guys. We're trying to get together and build just a Farnsworth fuser. Uh, I would really want to use it to see if I can transmute elements, make technium, maybe even plutonium, just small amounts that I can detect.
Do you want to get? All right, so then let's talk about what happened with YouTube, because you got into a little bit of trouble with YouTube. So can you go into
Okay.
how that came about?
So YouTube, they've, I guess they're being hit with a bunch of companies that are pulling out due to videos, being things that the companies don't want to advertise with.
Yeah, demonetized.
So their bots have gone through and just keywords, like for example, lighting gunpowder in a vacuum chamber. That one got age restricted and demonetized, even though it's a pretty benign video, right? Uh, Things like extracting the nitrates from the compost and producing the gunpowder from scratch using the ancient Chinese process, which you can find in any textbook. They removed those videos outright.
Yeah.
I almost had my channel deleted because of things like that. And it's actually like my mining stuff. I definitely, do I want to continue that?
Well, that's the question, right? Like, I mean, if you go and get your hands on uranium and refine it and make plutonium, and like, that's the kind of stuff that would probably get you demonetized and then eventually probably kicked out.
I mean, I'm doing it because I'm an element collector. I think I got one of my element collection sets right there.
Hold on a second here. Show it again.
I think it's on the shelf right here. Yeah, I've got every element that is reasonable to have.
All the ones that are legal to have.
And I guess now my target is the ones that are not. So
right, you need a little unobtainium. This question, Mr. X wants to know how do rockets work in a vacuum. I know they work with a suppressed chamber inside to produce thrust, but I want to know why that happens, Cody. You built a vacuum chamber and tested a rocket.
Right. So the rockets do behave differently in a vacuum. They should actually be more efficient because the gases that are coming out can go faster because they're not having to strike air on their way out and being slowed down, or it's essentially a pressure differential. The gases going out, equal and opposite reaction. They're pushing on the rocket as well as being pushed on themselves. So the gases. So you throw a ball, you're putting force on the ball, but the ball is also putting force on you, right? So the gases from the rocket are pushing on the rocket, and so the inside of the chamber, you've got pressure all over, and the pressure's, there's one side that's open, so you get a pressure differential, and the rocket goes one direction. In a vacuum, that pressure differential is greater because now you don't have the atmospheric pressure. I don't know if that.
Yeah. So it's almost like it's the opposite. It's the opposite thing that people said, right? People say that rockets won't work because they don't have any oxygen to push against, but the reality is it's the opposite.
They're pushing
better because when they're pushing against nothing. Yeah. Have you ever worked with meteorites? Cujo and Friends wants to know.
I have. I would go out into the salt flats around where I grew up, and I'd with a magnet on a stick and tap rocks, and I did find a couple over the years.
Are you sure?
Actually, I had one tested at the university, and they confirmed that it was a meteorite.
Yeah. So talk about Mars One. And you were in Mars One. I had no idea.
Yeah, I guess I made it into the top 100 with them. The whole idea with the Mars One was, you look at the amount of money that's spent on, say, the Olympic Games. I think in Russia a few years ago, they spent $50 billion on the Olympic Games. And I presume they made a lot of that back through the revenue from the advertising and stuff. And you're looking at those numbers, and that could fund a space mission, right? Maybe not a full-out NASA type government space mission, but maybe something private that's a little bit more efficient with the money. You might be able to fund that. And so that was the whole idea with the Mars One. A lot of people took that as a reality show because they thought, oh, it's going to be a reality show in space. I'm like, no, it's more like the Olympic Games in space. But so it would have to be on that sort of scale in order to fund it, though. And a lot of the news organizations and stuff kept it's like, oh, this couldn't happen, or it's a scam, and
Mm-hmm.
it creates a feedback cycle. And of course, nobody's going to invest in something that is not going to pay for itself until after it's happened, if there's people calling it a scam along the way.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've had a chance to actually interview Bands Land, Land,
Bosonstorp.
Bands Landstorp. Yeah. Yeah.
That's how you say his last name.
Yeah. And so, I mean, really, the question that people have is, are they being genuine? Do they do they really plan to raise the money as best they can and use that money to fund a trip to Mars and for people to live on Mars forever? Or is it some way for them to make money and they're going to pocket the difference with their foundation and it'll never happen, and there you go, and how do you tell the difference? So I didn't
Right. So
get the
this is the
sense that there was anything like that. I got the sense that they genuinely wanted to go to Mars, and that it's an absolute long shot. That was the impression
yeah.
that I got in talking to them.
So they raised not nearly as much money as they was hoping for, of
Yeah.
course, and almost all the money that they did raise got spent on. Uh, like you can actually look it up. They've got these. Uh, they contracted out the design and this for the habitation modules and stuff, and they paid like $60,000 for one report, and
Yeah.
they burned through a large amount of their money that way, and also I guess paying their employees salaries and plane tickets for Bass to go around to a whole bunch of uh, events and things. I actually met him down in Texas when I went down there for the Mars Society convention, and if you add all those up, that's all of the money they've raised. So they haven't really pocketed anything.
Right. So,
So,
as one of the people that's in it, what sort of has been your connection to them?
uh, I mean, they email us every now and then, tell us what's going on. I think at this point, it's just like they wanted to do the third round where they fly us out to the desert and put us in essentially tin cans, I guess, and see how we do. Do all the
Mm-hmm.
psychological tests. Uh, but of course, they wanted to actually pay for our flights. They didn't want to charge us anything. And of course, that 100 people flying to a foreign country, that's pretty expensive. And they just,
Mm-hmm.
I guess they haven't gotten the money to do that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. And so at a certain point, they run out of money.
Yeah,
And
they had investors that were in on it. It's like, okay, well, we'll pay for the third round. And then at some point, the investors are like, okay, we're not doing this anymore. So, oh,
someone behind you.
oh, that's Canyon.
How you guys doing?
Oh, she brought us some little turkey chicks.
Oh, wow. Hold on a second here. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I've been hatching out some turkeys for my parents' birds. Okay, here, you want to take these?
Sure.
That is so great. All right, so let's talk about space mining, asteroid mining.
Okay, so that's one of the reasons why I play with the precious metals a lot, since there's a lot of platinum in an asteroid. Like asteroid material, the worst stuff out in space would be considered a highly valuable ore down here on Earth. So there's a lot of potential money out there. I guess after YouTube and all that stuff, I'd love to go into that at some point.
So where are we? Do you think on the on the path to being able to mine an asteroid?
Well, we need to get some samples back from an asteroid so that we can essentially we need to do an assay. We need to know how much metal's there, and we need to give the investors actual numbers. It's like, okay, this is what it's going to cost to go get it, and this is what we'll make. And right now, it's going to cost us lots to go get it. It's going to make us lots of money. And I guess most investors are like, okay, but what's the time frame on that, and
Yeah,
how
when do I
much
get
are
my
the
money back?
I think as soon as we can get some hard numbers on that, it'll happen very quickly.
So are you involved in anyone? Or have you been talking to Planetary Resources, any of these other companies that are doing space mining at
I
all?
did talk to them a while ago. I probably ought to talk to them some more.
Yeah, there's like two main companies, right? There's um, uh, Planetary Resources, and then there's the other one. Oh, I forget the name, and I'm so sorry to the people who are
Uh-oh.
who run it.
Trying
There's
to
my
think.
Canadian sorry. It's somewhat Deep Space Industries, I think. Anyway, someone's going to mention
Sounds about
in the
right.
chat. Yeah, and
And I would be unsurprised if SpaceX went in after it
well,
too.
that's the thing, right? Is that when the BFR flies the big freaking rocket,
Mhm.
the first tests are probably going to happen next year. The first orbital flights are probably going to happen by 2020. We talked about this last week. The amount of fuel on this thing is $7 million. So that
Oh
brings
yeah.
for I think it's 250 tons. People keep up telling me the right numbers, but that's like $75 a kilogram to space. The thing will be able to
Pretty good.
fly to the moon, land. Astronauts can get out, collect a bunch of samples. They hop back in, and the thing flies back home. Like it just recreates the Apollo missions, just off, just because it can. Um, and so same thing, right? When you think about going to a nearby asteroid, there's a lot of these asteroids that have very low difference in velocity.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of them that are easier to get to than the moon.
Yeah, yeah. So they're only well, way easier than to get to the moon. You only need
Yeah.
like a tiny little bit more than just escape velocity of the
Yeah,
Earth.
because the moon you got to stop and then
Yes.
start back off
Yeah.
the
So like
gravity.
Tutatis, I believe is one of them. You'll need like a little bit more velocity than the velocity you need to get to just to leave Earth orbit, and then you could mine. And some of these things are um, you know trillions of dollars in any one
At
of these. Like they
least.
would crash the Earth precious metals industry.
I
And
mean,
yeah.
gold would make a good pop can material.
Yeah, just have
I
a
look
whole.
forward to the day when I'm drinking out of golden cups.
Yeah,
'Cause
exactly, because they're
it's as
just
cheap.
so common, right?
It'll never get as cheap as aluminum, though. It's always going to be a valuable metal. It might get down to the point where it's like copper,
Yeah.
but it's still going to be a valuable
Well,
metal.
and they'll
So
be
it
cheap. They'll be cheap, even cheaper aluminum, though, right? So aluminum will be as
and
cheap as wood and dirt. Gold will be as cheap as aluminum.
well, the aluminum's always going to be expensive as the electricity, but if we get some solar
Yeah.
powered stations, then yeah. Uh, One thing I'd like to know about the asteroids is okay, what the process is going to look like to actually get the stuff out of the rock. Like, I
Hmm.
actually want to take a sample of an asteroid or a meteorite, and I want to run some tests, and I want to see what the process is going to be because I haven't seen anyone actually look at that.
So then let's go through it then. Let's just run a little sort of mental example here.
Okay.
So you need to get. Let's say we're going to go to Tuatatis or some other nearby asteroid. You don't need a lot of delta V. You get there. The gravity is very low.
Right. So you can
They
build enormous structures. You could have an enormous solar, collector.
Yeah.
So harnessing things, no
But
problem.
you take a bad step and you just fly off into space, right? So there's some challenges to living and working on an asteroid.
So like there's a few different ways of getting the metal out that I was thinking of. Like you could crush it into a powder and then use a magnet to separate out the
See,
bits
now
of
we're
iron.
talking. Yeah.
So
Just
you
what
get
about just
most of the
like
iron
bag the whole
out.
thing up so nothing
Yeah.
can get away and you won't sort of float away?
Yeah, you'd have to. I was wondering if you could like even almost like shrink wrap the whole asteroid, like build it essentially a balloon around it
Yeah.
and give it and you work inside there. So if you release dust, it is captured.
Yeah.
Uh, a little bit of rotation, anything would naturally collect into certain areas. That'd be
And so what of your experiments then? From what you've learned, what would be the right way to extract metals off of the asteroid? I mean, if we're on the one hand, it could just be like a pile of rubble. It's just going to be like
right.
rocks and dirt and stuff, and it's all just kind of held together by mutual gravity. And you could probably almost
Shovel it up.
shovel picks, but it's just big chunks of dirt, right? With The other end of the spectrum is you got things like Asteroid Psyche, which are just a solid chunk of metal.
Yeah.
You know,
So
have
it's
you
gonna be
got one
hard
of
on.
those? Have you got a metal asteroid, a
I
metal
don't.
meteorite?
I don't have a metal one. I've just got an ordinary chondrite.
Oh,
So
get one because they are the best.
yeah.
I've got a bunch of them. Whenever I hang out with people in person, I give them a metal
So
meteorite.
a
So
while ago, I saw a video. There was a guy forging a knife from a meteorite. I was in one of those iron ones, and I was actually thinking of doing something similar, but he beat me to it. Um, and I think the problem was all the different metals in there, the sulfides and stuff. It made a very terrible knife, and so it's going to have to be refined. And I was thinking, hey, we could use the carbonyl process, react it with the carbon monoxide to produce the iron pentacarbonyl and nickel
mhm.
carbonyl. And then you can separate those through distillation, then reduce them back into metal form, recycle this carbon monoxide. So that it gets your iron, nickel, and a few other elements you can separate out. And then I guess for the remainder, if you're actually getting the platinum, you might do the same thing that concentrated the platinum out of the Earth's crust,
Mhm.
but do it on the asteroid to get a
But is
centrifuge.
there any reason to believe there's like more metal per asteroid, cubic asteroid, than there is on Earth?
Well, overall, there's the same amount because it's made of the same stuff, but the Earth melted when it formed because it's so big. The impacts produced so much heat. The entire Earth was melted, and all the heavy elements, which are the ones we're interested in, sunk to the core. And the metals that we're currently mining are stuff that have came in after the Earth's crust solidified. So all the gold and stuff is from meteorites that have landed after the Hadean era.
So they're inside the Earth. So if we want to really get at them,
Yeah,
we got to dig down.
and that would be a lot of digging
Yeah,
down.
yeah, to get down to the core.
Going down even just a few miles would be a lot harder than going into space. So
So my Cavelli asks, would the refinement process make it more difficult or easier on an asteroid? So what do you think? I mean, that low gravity?
so the
Everything's
low
going to be a
gravity
pain in
does hurt
space.
in some ways because now if you melt a giant vat of rock, it's just going to sit there and the metal is not going to fall out. So you're going to have to like spin that to get everything to collect.
Yeah.
Uh, and in a lot of ways, it'll be easier. Like there's no air to deal with. You can forge a chunk of iron and you don't have to put flux on it and it'd come out shiny. It wouldn't have that rust scale on it. It'd be perfect. And you could even
Because there's
smash it
no
together
oxygen.
and weld things without having to use a lot of heat and flux. And
Now, have you demonstrated that? Vacuum welding?
I have a little bit. I got copper and gold to weld.
Really? Like you put them in
Yeah,
the vacuum chamber and
yeah. I think I
then
had
weld
some
it?
copper powder and I vibrated it around with a chunk of copper, and afterwards I had like a layer of copper that had stuck to it. But it had to be very clean and it had to be a very high vacuum, which is a lot easier to get in space than it is here.
So what do you think about the legalities here? Christian Woodland is saying need some kind of agreement between Earth and space activity so economy on Earth doesn't go kaput. So what do you think about the legalities of it? Do you think everyone should just be able to just go to
So
space?
back when I was setting up because the my mine, you need special permissions to dig a hole, even if it's in your backyard. And I was talking to the Bureau of Land Management, and uh, I, while I was doing that, I asked them, so what would it take for me to put a mineral claim on an asteroid? And they just kind of laughed at me. But
Yeah,
I think
possession is
that's
9/10 of the rule. I believe in that one.
yeah, I think there's actually laws that they've written since then where any citizen who picks up material, the material they've picked up is theirs, but the rock itself is not. So it's first come, first
Yeah.
serve.
Yeah, they actually rewrote the laws in the last couple of years to explicitly allow and make it easy for private individuals to go and mine asteroids. So you're in the clear now. So little, I mean, this is what all your training is for. So your chemistry and your astronaut training, it's all going to come together, and you are going to be mining those asteroids and making big money. That's awesome. I love it.
So I got here on my thing. So people say, why Mars? Let's go to the moon first. I'm like, well, let's go to the moons of Mars first if we want to go to the
Sure.
moon.
Yeah.
And I think you did a video a while ago about habitating Venus and why it some ways is better than Mars.
I did that a long time ago.
Yeah,
I'm not. I think your moons of Mars is a great point, right? Like you could
right.
go and set up on say Phobos and Deimos. You could build a nice little base there. The gravity's low. They're easy-ish to get to compared to trying to get down to the surface of Mars and then come back up. And you can teleoperate robots
Exactly.
from the orbit of Mars. And so you just like run an army of robots in real time. So
So
geologists or whatever
what we
could
need
be
to
in.
do is turn Phobos into a space station.
Yeah. But what
And
about the portal to hell that's on Phobos? Is that like a constant problem they're gonna have to deal with?
well, I want to know what it is.
It's in the Doom game. If you haven't played that, there was a
Obviously, I haven't played that.
yeah.
So,
Uh,
um, I was, so, like, I'm a fan of Mars. I like looking at Venus. Like, why would you want to colonize Venus? It's a steep gravity well.
yeah.
It's very difficult to get to resources. You may as well be putting a boat in the middle of the ocean. It's about the same conditions. Venus is an ocean of carbon dioxide, and I realized the reasons that I didn't like Venus also apply to Mars in some ways. Mars has a gravity well; it's hard to get off of, and the only reasons I want to go actually to the surface of Mars is to dig up some frozen fishies and see if there any fast life there, right?
If they're still
So it's
good.
definitely
Yeah.
like for actual habitation, asteroids. That's where it's at.
Yeah. Well, and I totally agree. Like people ask me, like, well, should we go to Venus? Should we go to Mars? Should we go to the moon? I think we should just go to space.
Exactly.
Like going, if you going into gravity wells is for suckers, right?
That's one thing I like about Isaac Arthur's videos. He talks about that a lot. The big space mega structures and
Yeah,
things.
yeah. So once you've gone into a gravity well, once you've escaped a gravity well, you never want to go back into one.
Exactly.
Oh, someone had a question there. I'm just gonna find it here. Okay, so Satanic Toaster wants to know, given your interest in Mars and space in general, do you practice any astronomy? What about astrophotography?
You
You've got a
talking about me?
telescope?
Do I got a picture of the Humanity Star a while ago.
Oh, you did? I never saw
Yeah,
it.
I tried for so long to catch a picture of that, and apparently I caught it just before it died, like the
Yeah.
day before we entered. Uh, so what I did is I just set my camera up, and I knew about where it was going to be in the sky, and I just set my camera to take a picture uh, once once every 2 seconds, and then hold the shutter open for a second, and I just did picture for about 5 minutes or so. And then I just reviewed the pictures after, and I was able to see, okay, a little sparkly thing, that was Humanity Star.
Yeah, no, I missed it. But our weather. I apologize to a bunch of people watching in the chat right now. My Nightbot is like a little overly aggressive, and anyway, if you use like all capitals and symbols, it doesn't like it. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'll disable that. Let me see. I'll disable the excessive caps, and I will disable the excessive emotes. But now, of course, you're going to go emote crazy, and you're going to every comment's going to be in capitals because that's how the internet works. All right. Jeff Calling says, "What do you think about rotating habitats in space or hollowing out asteroids?"
We'll haul out the asteroid and use the material to build a rotating habitat, right?
Yeah.
Roll out the steel, the nickel, make the walls and the pressure vessel.
I mean, the only problem is that we don't know what like I said, how well these things hold together. And these are like a lot of this is a lot of the research that we have to do is we have to go to these worlds, we have to explore them, we have to find out, can we spin them up? Can we live inside them? Are they just going to fall apart if we rotate them too quickly? Are they just going to tear themselves apart? So we don't know. That is the challenge, right? And so
I need to get some prospectors out.
we got to get some prospects out. You, right? You are the sort of ultimate asteroid miner. I can just imagine that you're like in some science fiction movie, running his own asteroid mining ship, making a living on the,
It's
on
like
the platinum he can pull off of various asteroids with his
my
mining
grandpa's
bots.
mining company was Sidewinder Mining.
That
So,
was the name of your grandfather's mining company.
yeah,
That's awesome.
I might continue that. So
Yep.
I was even thinking like for like a flag, you could have the Sidewinder snake going from Earth with
Yep.
this like pattern and like
So,
eating an
so you already know the name of your asteroid mining company.
Exactly.
Awesome. George Lancaster says, "Aren't there solid metal asteroids?" There are. There's asteroid Psyche, for example, which appears to be the heart of a destroyed planetoid. Sorry, and
Have
that's
they gotten any pictures of the metal from those?
well, it's just like I can't reach them, but I've got some metal asteroids over there, metal
So
meteorites.
I've always wondered, like, is it shiny when it's out in space? Because it comes into the atmosphere of the Earth, it oxidizes and turns like a black color. But out in space, is it? I imagine it would be, like, especially if something had hit it recently.
Yeah.
I'd love to get some
Well,
pictures of that.
this is a mission that NASA is planning to send. It's been approved at this point, so they're going to be sending a mission to this asteroid to find out, was it really the heart of a destroyed planet? So a couple of people are noting in the chat, they're called M-type asteroids. They're about 15% of the asteroids out there, I think. And so the problem is they do
That
fall
percentage,
here,
right?
but you can't find them anymore, right? You gonna grab an asteroid for me, a meteorite? Yeah. So go to eBay, Cody, and do a search for metal meteorite.
Is that one of the Canyon Diablo ones, or
No. Well, the one that I like is the Campos del Cielo. And
that might be what I
they're
was
the
thinking of.
cheapest ones, and so you can get, with your YouTube bucks until you get demonetized, you could probably get or trade, some platinum out on the open market. You could get a fist-sized metal meteorite for a few $100s, and it's just I want one bad.
What I would probably do with that is, I want to save some for my collection, of course.
Destroy it, you monster.
Grind it up into a powder.
To a powder.
Basically, do what I would do out in space, right?
Yeah, just to find out, just to make sure.
And forge it properly. Take all those sulfides and all the other metals out so it'd make a proper knife.
Yeah.
Add in a little carbon so it's hard.
John Michael Gaudier in the chat, he's saying Silcoat Allen irons are cheap too. Yeah, so there's a couple of these meteorite falls. The Campos del Cielo, the Silcoat Allen are sort of the cheap ones. But I recommend everybody just go to eBay, buy a metal meteorite. It is the most awesome piece of space metal that you can get. But the problem is that, as you said, they land here on Earth and they rust away.
Yeah,
and so
that's actually something I noticed about finding meteorites out on the salt flats. Is I don't find them on the salt flats.
Huh?
Because they rust away so quickly.
But stone ones must show up there, right? If you find a rock on the salt flats, it had to be a meteorite.
Even the stone ones come apart
with the salt.
Yeah, the salt destroys them. The only ones I've found are kind of up a little bit higher, where the water table doesn't come to.
Yeah,
it's like the salt flats. The surface of the salt flats, it's all smooth. That's the water table. So that it's water that's come up there, and the water evaporates, and the salt gets left, and over time it gets smooth. And so it's like this time of year, it's always wet.
Yeah,
you drive out there with your truck, you'll sink to your axles, and so rocks would sink down underneath the salt and decompose.
Yeah,
I imagine they wouldn't last that long.
Well, people do go and they'll take metal detectors and they'll go out to farmers' fields and they'll just scan them carefully and find.
That's something I always wanted to try. Is you drive by a farmer's field and they have piles of rocks that they pulled out of the field. Like take a metal detector and see if I can find in there.
Yeah. let's see. George had another one. Uh, have you ever hear of a snow cone building system for making giant metal hollow stations via live free or die? A snow cone? You're gonna have to explain, George. I don't know what you're talking about.
So you make a snow cone, you like pack it together.
Yeah, out of asteroid stuff.
Well, you get the metal purified. You can just take a powder and smash it together. And
Yeah. Well,
metal sheet.
and George was saying in the chat, yeah, you can find meteorites on large snowfields. They find them on glaciers and they find them in
Oh yeah,
Antarctica, which is pretty
yeah.
cool. And so they'll go out in Antarctica with, um, like in a snowmobile, and they'll
Mhm.
just and anything that they find that's sitting out there on the ice. And a lot of times, if it's now because Antarctica is melting, um, and the glaciers are melting, so they're melting down, and so stuff that's been found there years and years ago gets revealed. People want to know what you're drinking.
Is raspberry iced tea?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Not heavy water iced tea?
No, heavy water is a little expensive to drink all the
Have you
time.
made any heavy water? Have you tried?
I have.
Really?
Yeah.
How would you make heavy water?
A lot of electrolysis.
Yeah.
So you electrolysis it down till there's nothing, and then do it again and again till you get something that's heavier, I guess.
Apparently, it's poisonous.
In large quantities, it would be.
Did you try it?
I've tasted little bits of it, yeah.
And you're still here. How are you still here? I think is the question, right?
Well, it's
That's
dumb luck and a deal with the devil.
what. So what had the greatest chance of almost killing you?
uh, Driving?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. There was an accident a while back before I even had a YouTube channel, which I got locked in a shed with chlorine gas. I actually saved some of my. I'll make a video on this, but
Yeah.
I actually saved some of my hair. The hair was bleached almost white. So what happened is I was trying to use chlorine to dissolve gold, and I wanted to put it in a canister so I could like have it on demand. And I guess my dad came by. I was like, "Oh, that door's open. I better close that." And of course, closed it. It locked. And now I'm working with the chlorine gas. It gets out a little bit, and I go to the door. The door's locked. Ended up having to go out the back and walk through a cloud of chlorine several times, and it's not very good for you.
No. Just imagine, hacking your way out with an axe or something if you had to.
Yeah, it took me years to mess with chlorine at all.
Ever again.
Yeah,
Freak you out. But chlorine is so useful for chemistry.
it is. That's how I got the platinum here.
Yeah. So you were able to overcome your chlorine fear.
It's like I've worked with things that are probably even worse than chlorine, but
Such as?
uh, Cersei solution, the thallium malonate.
I don't know what that is.
It's tasteless, odorless poison. It's been banned because it's too toxic.
Right.
It's really useful for separating minerals in an ore sample, but I think Thiosol did a video a little while ago, or thallium is the most toxic metal on Earth, right? Which is debatable, but it's pretty toxic.
Yeah. Carl Ramirez is saying there was a time Julian Assange claimed his hair was white due to a science experiment gone wrong. This is a great question. So this comes from Daryl Adams. Cody, when will we see mercury from tuna?
Oh, I've got a stack of tuna. I've been wanting to work on that.
Like cans?
The problem is I want to rebuild a distillation apparatus designed for that, because there's mercury in tuna, but it's not very much, right? I did try once, and it just made a big tarry mess. So I'm gonna have to try again. A few milligrams per can, which is an amount that I could extract,
Mhm.
in theory, but it's
So what
pretty
would be the process then? How would you get at it?
so what I'm thinking of doing now is just to dry it out, burn it to ash, collect all the vapors, and then use chemicals to isolate the mercury.
Dry it out, burn it to ash, and then use chemicals. And so, what
Yeah,
chemical
so
would
I'm
you?
gonna have to collect all the smoke and stuff that comes off the burning because the mercury's
Because the mercury will
involved.
go up into the smoke.
Yeah, so I need to collect all the soot.
And you were building like a fume hood, right? Or was that for a different
Yeah,
purpose?
it's actually this is my fume hood I'm building. I still need to work on the door and the actual vent, but
And what are you going to do with that? Like
well,
just a general purpose fume hood?
before I do any major work with chlorine, I want a fume hood. Like dissolving gold into acid, it produces lots of relatively toxic gas, which is fertilizer, but not for your lungs.
um, let's see. So Jeff calling, question for us: with the growth in private space, do you think you will visit space in your lifetime, even just suborbital? What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think that's on the table.
Really? Would you sign up for like the Blue Origin suborbital flight, or would you go
yeah.
orbital? Would you go to Mars? People always ask me if I go to Mars. Would you go to Mars?
I mean, you're talking to a guy who
You signed up for Mars
a
one. I
one-way.
know, but if it actually came up, would you do it?
Oh yeah.
You'd like be willing to go to Mars and die there?
Well, I'd want to live for a
One-way
while.
trip to Mars, Cody. That's the deal.
So one thing I was joking about a while ago is for the one-way trip to Mars, everybody assumes is they're gonna die on impact. Basically, I'm like, well, maybe Mars one should have done that. I bet you'd still have people sign up.
Yeah, yeah. But do you
That
think that
was
people
never
are
the plan.
really appreciate? Because I think you're pretty close, right? Like you like to spend a bunch of time out in the farm, out on the property, living off the land, as it were, chemistrying off the land. Like you're pretty well on your way to being, a future Martian. But I think for a lot of people, they don't realize just how awful the place is.
Yeah, like I'd probably be okay controlling a robot on the surface of Mars from Phobos, right?
Right.
And like something I've been thinking a lot about lately is you go to Mars, humans are going to contaminate that immediately.
Yeah.
Like we can't send people until we've determined what the life on Mars looks like. Is it related to us? Is it, we won't know if we contaminate it.
People ask me this question all the time, and I like was it Neil deGrasse Tyson's answer, which is I'll go to Mars after Elon Musk's grandmother returns from it safely.
So he wants to go on a
Right? So
airlines flight or something.
yeah, so once it's safe and calm, then and people keep coming back and forth, and
I mean, that's when it's going to be boring, right?
that's perfect. I want it to be boring. Yeah. Jao Strza wants to know if you're going to wax yourself with your beeswax.
I haven't thought of doing that.
Yeah. There you go.
The problem with beeswax is it has a higher melting point than the paraffin wax.
Yeah.
So pouring it on the skin will burn you.
Yeah.
So.
Someone wanted to know what we thought about Interstellar.
Interstellar, the movie?
Yeah.
Okay, I think Interstellar should have been called Gravity, and Gravity should have been called something else.
Because of all of the relativistic time dilation that happened with Interstellar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, Gravity would be a great name for that. And he didn't really. I mean, yes, it was Interstellar, but it wasn't very satisfyingly
I thought
Interstellar.
it was fine. It was fine.
I mean, it's great movies, but
yeah. I mean, it was great to show. I'm now able to use that example whenever I explain to people how time dilation works, how gravitational time dilation works. I'm like, you remember that movie Interstellar? They went down to that planet and they're near the black hole. And when they came back up, everyone had aged 80 years. That's how time dilation works. So
a lot of gravity to do that, though.
But using it as a way to explain how, what's inside black holes, that's when it goes all out the window and it's of no value whatsoever.
Yep.
What Would I wear Cody's hair as a wig? Yes, I sure would. He's got beautiful hair. Look at that, golden
So
locks.
when I did the Reddit AMA, I got a lot of questions about the hair, and I don't think I answered it as well
You
as
don't feel like
people
you
like.
addressed it as much as you should
So,
have?
um, so I guess I started growing it out just kind of incidentally. It sort of does it. Uh, Too lazy to cut it, and people commented on that they liked my longer hair, so I just kind of left it alone. And I think what really solidified it was a lady at Walmart told me I needed a spanking for growing my hair out, and I'm like, well, you know what? I'm gonna keep my
Wow.
hair long then.
Is that what it's like having your long hair in Utah?
Guys aren't supposed to have long hair. That's a girl thing.
I wish. I used to have long hair. Arjun wants to know, do you think you could survive in Antarctica? So that's closer to home.
I mean,
Go live in
you can
Antarctica.
still breathe the air,
Yeah.
so it'd be easier than Mars.
Yeah, it's a million times easier than Mars.
Actually, I think people live there year round now, right?
Oh yeah, no, there's a base. I mean, there's the base at the South Pole, and people live there year round.
Is it actually out the South Pole?
Yeah, at the South Pole. There's a bunch of bases, but one is very at the South Pole, and they are growing. They actually just got their hydroponic plant. They've got like a sea canister filled with hydroponics, and they're growing tons of vegetables.
See, now that sounds like fun.
Cucumbers. It sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, I know. When I saw that, I'm like, man, I got to get my hydroponics going a little better. So
I've got about 8 feet that way my hydroponic system with the 100 buckets.
100. So what
Yeah.
are you using for light?
Just the
You
sunlight.
just use the sun. Okay, yeah.
At least whatever I can get past my neighbor's
I've got
tree.
one of those. Anthony, people are asking about me with long hair. Do a search for my name. You'll see me with like a ponytail, pink, and curly hair. Yeah. So do a well, right. So I've got one of those LED grow lights, the sort of full spectrum. Everything gets purple, and so we used it to start a bunch of plants over the wintertime and tried growing like some lettuce and tomatoes and things like that inside, and it kind of worked. We were getting cherry tomatoes out of it with one of these lamps.
You actually got them to tomatoes?
Yeah, well, so my wife realized that you had to
Is that my phone?
pollinate them. So she was being a bee. So she'd go in and had
Right.
like a toothbrush or a Q-tip.
With tomatoes, you can just give them a good shake.
Yeah, so she'd have to go and you have to shake the tomatoes to get the pollen to come down, and then you have to pick up the pollen, you have to paint it on other tomatoes. Very, very intensive process.
Yeah. I think I did a video a while ago, like you're out in space, you got a big greenhouse, you're growing your own food. Hand pollinating is a lot of work.
Yeah, no,
Jeez.
ton of work.
I think bumblebees would be up to the task.
Well, that's one of the reasons why. Yeah. Well, have you seen? They need a special. Oh, that's right. We used a toothbrush. You have to use a
those
electric
vibrating?
toothbrush. Yes, use an electric toothbrush. You buzz the flowers, and they release the pollen, and then you catch the pollen, and then you paint the pollen on other things. Yeah, it was a lot of work, and we didn't set up the farm again this wintertime. So we'll try.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw my mining series, but I did like try to grow plants inside the mine with a solar panel and some LED grow lights.
Yeah.
I wanted to do more of it, but I had a problem with the mice eating everything, and also the assay reports I got back, the soil was high in lead, so I didn't want the dust getting on the plants and then eating that.
Is the whole area high in lead, or just the inside the mine?
Actually, I did some more tests on my own, and I determined that the assay place must have mixed my samples up because there wasn't nearly as much lead as they said it was.
Oh, so you did your own. That's hilarious, right? You go and you get your stuff tested for lead, and you don't like the results. You go and you test it yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, classic Cody'sLab. That's an episode.
I wanted to, extract the lead. Like, hey, there's a metal, but I couldn't do it. There's not as much lead as they said then.
That's awesome.
So, but yeah, like the mercury content of the soil on the ranch is pretty high. I think it was like between 50 and 100 parts per million just everywhere, because it's naturally in the soil. And they had a big fire in 2007 that burned all that area. It's got that high mercury content. And then in 2008, there are reports saying that the Great Salt Lake is extremely high mercury levels. I'm like, yeah, you wonder where that came from. They're like, it's a big mystery. Where did this mercury come from? We're investigating all the mining companies. I'm like, no, it came from the fire.
Right. That's interesting. Again, they should have gotten your help with this. Well, we've reached the end of this hour. Where does the time go, Cody? So for people who don't know your material, your channel is called Cody'sLab. Just do a search on that. You've got how many followers do you have now? 1.5 million?
1.4 million, but of course with YouTube, they don't show everybody the videos. So I think there's a couple 100,000 that actually.
And what will people see shortly?
This video that I was going to do today, but it's going to probably get pushed out to tomorrow. I took some gold powder and beat on it with a hammer until it turned into a metal foil.
Hold on, let me get a view. Hold it up again, one more time.
Okay.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, like, I've smashed the gold into a metallic sheet.
Yeah.
Without ever. Well, I did have to heat it because it does have to be annealed, but I never melted the gold.
Oh, that is
like this.
That is so cool.
Of course, it would have been much easier in a vacuum.
Awesome. All right. Well, everyone should go and check out Cody'sLab. It is super fun, and please be safe.
I'm definitely improving my safety.
All right. Thanks a lot. And thanks everyone for watching. I guess next week we negotiated while we were doing this show. Next week is John Michael Gaudier. So we'll have him
I've seen his videos too.
We'll have him on the chat. And I think after that, it's going to be Paul Matt Sutter. He doesn't know that yet, but I'll negotiate it with him. All right. Thanks everyone. Thanks Cody. We'll see everybody next week.